Terrorism. Terrorism is the use of violence or threats to intimidate or coerce a population or government for political, religious, or ideological reasons. It aims to create fear and disrupt normalcy. Terrorist acts can range from bombings and shootings to cyber attacks and propaganda. Land war. A land war typically refers to a conflict or battle fought primarily on land, as opposed to naval or aerial warfare. It involves military operations conducted on the ground by infantry, armored vehicles, artillery, and other land-based forces. Land wars can vary in scale from small skirmishes to large-scale conflicts involving multiple nations. They often involve tactics such as troop movements, fortifications, ambushes, and sieges, and can have significant impacts on the political, social, and economic landscapes of the involved regions. Cold weather war. A cold weather war refers to a conflict or military operation conducted in harsh winter conditions, often characterized by extreme cold, snow, and ice. These conditions present unique challenges for both troops and equipment, such as decreased mobility, supply difficulties, increased risk of frostbite and hypothermia, and reduced effectiveness of certain weapons and machinery. Cold weather warfare requires specialized training, equipment, and tactics to effectively navigate and operate in such environments. Examples of cold weather wars include the Eastern Front of World War II, where German and Soviet forces battled in the harsh winter conditions of Russia, and the Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union in 1939-1940. Submarine war. Submarine warfare involves the use of submarines to attack enemy ships, disrupt supply lines, gather intelligence, or deter adversaries. Submarines operate underwater and can carry torpedoes, missiles, or mines. They are stealthy and can be difficult to detect, making them a powerful tool in naval warfare. Armored war. Armored warfare is a military strategy that relies on the use of armored vehicles, such as tanks and armored personnel carriers, to achieve battlefield objectives. Armored vehicles provide protection for troops and firepower to engage enemy forces. They are used to maneuver quickly across terrain, break through enemy defenses, and support infantry units. Weather war. Weather warfare refers to the manipulation or modification of weather patterns for military purposes. This can include techniques such as cloud seeding to induce rainfall or creating storms to disrupt enemy operations. Mountain war. Mountain warfare involves military operations in mountainous terrain, which presents unique challenges due to rugged landscapes, extreme weather conditions, and limited accessibility. Tactics in mountain warfare often involve specialized training, equipment, and strategies tailored to the terrain, such as using alpine troops, employing guerrilla tactics, and utilizing vertical mobility assets like helicopters. Desert war. Desert war involves military operations conducted in desert environments, characterized by arid landscapes, extreme temperatures, and sparse vegetation. Tactics in desert warfare often focus on mobility, logistics, and adapting to harsh conditions. Specialized equipment and vehicles such as desert camouflage, sand filters for engines, and desert-adapted vehicles like the Humvee are utilized. Cold War. The Cold War denotes a geopolitical standoff between nations characterized by the absence of direct military engagement, instead employing strategies such as economic and political maneuvers, propaganda, espionage, and proxy wars. It is frequently associated with the American-Soviet Cold War spanning 1947 to 1989. Colonial War. The Colonial Wars is an armed conflicts between colonial powers and indigenous populations or rival colonial entities, motivated by economic interests and territorial expansion. Invasion. The invasion constitutes a large-scale military offensive where combatants from one geopolitical entity forcefully enter territory controlled by another with the primary aim of either conquering, liberating, re-establishing control, or authority over the territory. Conventional warfare. The conventional warfare is characterized by organized state armies engaging in open confrontation, employing traditional weapons and battlefield tactics. Clearly defined forces on each side primarily target the opponent's military, adhering to recognized rules of engagement. Unconventional warfare. The unconventional warfare involves non-traditional military strategies, often employed by irregular forces against a conventional or occupying power. It includes guerrilla tactics, insurgency, and asymmetrical approaches aiming to exploit the weaknesses of a stronger adversary. Total war. The total war is a type of warfare that includes any and all civilian-associated resources and infrastructure as legitimate military targets, mobilizes all of the resources of society to fight the war, and gives priority to warfare over non-combatant needs. Limited war. The limited wars have specific goals, avoiding widespread destruction and escalation. Unlike total war, they often involve restrictions on certain weapons or tactics. Nuclear war. The nuclear war involves the use of nuclear weapons in armed conflict. These immensely powerful weapons release energy through nuclear reactions, causing devastating explosions and long-term radiation effects. Undeclared war. The undeclared war is a military conflict between two or more nations without either side issuing a formal declaration of war. World War. The World War is a large-scale conflict spanning multiple nations or regions involving complex global alliances with significant impact on continents. Examples include World War I and World War II, marked by extensive participation, geopolitical shifts, and global consequences. Chemical war. The chemical warfare employs toxic chemicals like gases or liquids to cause harm to humans, animals, or the environment during conflict. This method aims to incapacitate or eliminate the enemy by exposing them to hazardous chemical substances. Biological war. The biological war involves the use of biological agents such as bacteria or viruses with the intent to harm or kill people, animals, or plants. This can be achieved through the deliberate release of pathogens, toxins, or other biological substances to cause illness or death. Electronic war. The electronic war focuses on the use of electromagnetic signals to gain a tactical advantage. It includes activities like jamming enemy communications, intercepting signals, and disrupting radar systems. Information war. The information war utilizes technology for strategic advantage, manipulating, spreading disinformation, or disrupting communication to influence opinions and undermine adversaries. Forms include cyber attacks, propaganda, and psychological operations. Guerrilla war. The guerrilla war, characterized by small, mobile, and flexible groups using tactics such as ambushes, hit-and-run attacks, and sabotage. Typically employed by weaker forces against a conventional or occupying power, guerrilla warfare aims to disrupt the enemy's operations and erode their strength over time. War of liberation. The War of Liberation is a conflict where a group or nation fights to free itself from oppression, occupation, or foreign control, aiming to achieve independence and self-determination. These wars are often characterized by a quest for freedom and the establishment of sovereign governance. Space war. The space war involves the use of military force in outer space. It includes activities such as satellite attacks, anti-satellite weapons, and potential conflicts over strategic positions. Psychological war. The psychological war involves the use of psychological tactics to influence the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors of individuals or groups. It aims to achieve strategic objectives by manipulating perceptions, spreading disinformation, inducing fear, or creating confusion. Proxy war. The proxy war is a conflict where two or more external powers support rival factions or groups within a country, using them as proxies to advance their own interests without engaging in direct military confrontation. This indirect approach allows external actors to influence or manipulate the course of a conflict, often exacerbating tensions within the targeted nation. Fault line war. The fault line war refers to a conflict arising from deep-seated ethnic, religious, or cultural divisions within a nation. These fault lines become sources of tension and can lead to violent conflicts as different groups seek to assert their identity or control. Civil war. The Civil War is an armed conflict within a single country involving factions due to political, ideological, or socioeconomic divisions, causing internal hostilities and lasting impacts on society, economy, and politics. Range war. The Range War, common in 19th and early 20th century American West, is a violent conflict over control of open range for cattle grazing. Marked by clashes over water, grazing rights, and cattle ownership, these disputes earned the name range wars. Economic war. The economic war is a strategy where nations use economic measures as tools of conflict. This includes imposing sanctions, trade restrictions, or manipulating financial systems to achieve political or military objectives. The goal is to exert pressure on an adversary by targeting its economic stability and resources, influencing its behavior without direct military engagement. Religious war. The religious war is a conflict primarily motivated by religious differences or ideologies. These wars typically involve hostilities between groups adhering to different faiths or sects, seeking to assert their religious beliefs, and, in some cases, to convert others. The political war. The political war employs diplomatic, informational, military, and economic means to influence other states or groups strategically. It seeks to shape perceptions, gain support, and exert influence globally or domestically without relying solely on military force. Attrition War. The Attrition War is a strategy where the objective is to gradually wear down the enemy's strength and resources through continuous losses, reducing their ability to fight effectively. This approach typically involves prolonged engagements and seeks to outlast the opponent rather than achieving decisive victories. Asymmetric War. The asymmetric war is a form of conflict wherein the involved parties exhibit substantial disparities in military power, strategy, or tactics, frequently characterized by engagements between irregular forces such as insurgents or militias, and established standing armies. It may involve tactics challenging traditional rules of warfare. Expeditionary War. The Expeditionary War involves military operations conducted abroad by a nation's forces, often beyond its borders. It includes deployments for various purposes such as combat or peacekeeping. Hybrid War. The hybrid war combines conventional and unconventional tactics, blending military, political, economic, and informational strategies to achieve objectives. It's a versatile approach that goes beyond traditional war, often involving non-state actors and unconventional methods. Cyber War. The cyber war involves using digital tactics to disrupt or damage an adversary's computer systems, networks, or information. It's a form of warfare focused on the virtual realm, encompassing cyber attacks, hacking, and electronic manipulation for strategic advantage. Entomological War. The Entomological War involves using insects as weapons for military purposes. This can include deploying insects to spread diseases, disrupt agriculture, or cause other forms of harm. It's a biological warfare strategy that exploits the capabilities of insects to impact the enemy's resources and infrastructure. Ant War. The ant wars occur when colonies of ants engage in aggressive conflicts with neighboring colonies over territory, resources, or dominance. These wars involve mass gatherings of ants from each colony, battling through various means such as chemical warfare, physical combat, or strategic maneuvers to gain control. The outcome can result in the takeover, destruction, or displacement of one colony by another. Console War. The console war is a competition between different gaming console manufacturers, like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, to attract gamers and sell their consoles. They compete in terms of hardware specs, exclusive games, online services, and overall user experience. It's like a battle for supremacy in the gaming industry. Gender War. The gender war refers to societal conflicts and tensions surrounding gender roles, equality, and identity. It encompasses debates and struggles related to issues such as gender discrimination, stereotypes, and disparities in various aspects of life, including employment, education, and representation. It's essentially a broader cultural and social struggle for gender equality and justice. War without reason. A war without reason is a conflict that lacks a clear or justifiable cause. It often involves aggression or violence driven by irrational motives, such as greed, power struggles, or misunderstandings between parties. These wars can lead to devastating consequences without any meaningful purpose or justification behind the fighting. Food War. The food war occurs when there's a shortage, competition, or dispute over access to food resources. This could involve conflicts over land for agriculture, control of food distribution, or disagreements over food trade policies. Trench War. Trench warfare is a type of warfare where opposing forces fight from trenches facing each other. It was prominently used during World War I. Soldiers lived, fought, and defended from these trenches, leading to a stalemate for long periods due to the difficulty of advancing across open ground. Ant World War. Ant world wars occur when two or more colonies of ants engage in aggressive conflicts over territory, resources, or dominance. These wars can involve thousands to millions of ants and often result in casualties on both sides. Ants use various tactics such as chemical warfare, mass attacks, and recruitment of soldiers to gain an advantage. The outcome of these conflicts determines the survival and expansion of the victorious colony. Water War. A water war is a conflict over access to or control of water resources, such as rivers, lakes, or aquifers. It can involve disputes between countries, regions, or communities over usage rights, pollution, or infrastructure development related to water. Gang War. A gang war is a violent conflict between rival gangs or criminal organizations over territory, control of illegal activities like drug trafficking or extortion, or other disputes. These conflicts often involve shootings, stabbings, and other acts of violence, leading to casualties and instability in affected communities. Hot War. A hot war is a military conflict characterized by active and open hostilities between opposing forces. It involves direct combat such as battles and skirmishes, with the use of weapons and military tactics. Hot wars can occur between nations, factions, or groups, and often result in significant casualties and destruction. Monkey War. Monkey wars happen when different groups of monkeys, such as troops or bands, engage in aggressive confrontations over territory, food, or social dominance. These conflicts can involve physical fights, vocalizations, and displays of aggression. Monkeys use strategies like forming alliances, displaying dominance, and engaging in combat to establish control. The outcome of these wars influences the social hierarchy and resource distribution within the monkey populations involved. Culture War. The culture war refers to a conflict between different groups in society over values, beliefs, and norms. It often involves debates about issues like politics, religion, gender, and race, with each side seeking to influence society's direction and shape its cultural landscape. Great Emu War. The Emu War happened in 1932 in Australia. Basically, soldiers were sent to fight emus because they were damaging crops. However, the emus were too fast and elusive, so the soldiers couldn't really win. It became kind of a funny and embarrassing event in Australian history. Annihilation War. The Annihilation War is a conflict strategy aimed at completely destroying or wiping out an enemy's military forces, infrastructure, and ability to resist. It often involves intense and relentless attacks designed to crush the opponent's ability to fight back. This approach may involve overwhelming force, targeting key resources, and employing tactics like scorched earth or total warfare to ensure the enemy's defeat. Race War. The race war is a violent conflict between different racial or ethnic groups. It can be sparked by various factors such as discrimination, inequality, or historical grievances. Race wars can lead to widespread violence, destruction, and loss of life, and often have deep-rooted social, economic, and political causes. Independent War. An independent war is a conflict fought by a group or entity separate from any recognized government or state. These groups might be rebel factions, guerrilla armies, or separatist movements fighting for autonomy or control over territory without the backing of a nation-state. These conflicts often lack clear rules of engagement and can involve irregular tactics and unconventional warfare strategies. Tunnel War. The tunnel war is a military tactic involving the use of underground tunnels and passages to gain tactical advantages in warfare. It's been used throughout history, from ancient times to modern conflicts. In this strategy, soldiers dig tunnels to surprise enemies, conduct ambushes, or evade detection. It's effective for surprise attacks, communication, and supply routes, but can also pose risks like collapse or counter-tunneling by the enemy. Mine Warfare. The mine war involves the use of explosive devices known as mines to hinder enemy movement, destroy enemy vehicles, or protect territory. These mines can be placed on land, in water, or even buried underground. They are triggered by pressure, proximity, or remote control. Mine warfare aims to disrupt enemy operations and create obstacles, but it also poses dangers to civilians and can have long-lasting effects even after the conflict ends. Aerial War. The aerial war is the use of military aircraft to conduct combat operations in the sky and sometimes on the ground. It involves dogfights between fighter jets, bombing runs on enemy targets, reconnaissance missions, and air-to-ground or air-to-air combat. Aerial warfare plays a crucial role in modern warfare, providing strategic advantages in terms of surveillance, strike capability, and mobility. Naval War. The naval war is the use of naval forces, including warships and submarines, to engage in combat operations at sea. It involves tactics such as ship-to-ship combat, naval blockades, amphibious assaults, and maritime patrols. Naval warfare plays a vital role in controlling maritime trade routes, projecting power across the oceans, and protecting coastal territories. Jungle War. Jungle War is military operations conducted in dense tropical forests or jungles. It involves navigating through thick vegetation, dealing with high humidity, and contending with wildlife hazards like insects and snakes. Tactics often include ambushes, stealth movement, and reliance on small units for maneuverability.